Okay, with us today for our Career Pathways interview, we have Rosario Bell. And I'm not even going to say what your title is because you have several. So
Yes.
if you were introducing yourself as a professional, what would you say?
Well, I first start off with I'm a business owner. I have my own salon suite. It's a very intimate, one-on-one space where people can feel more comfortable getting their services. And so I am a licensed nail technician. I've been licensed for going on 4 years, which time flies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also a licensed esthetician, and that's going on 2 years.
Okay. Wow. See, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but it's actually pretty rewarding when you hear it. When I hear
Mm-hmm.
myself say it, I'm like, oh, I've accomplished some things.
Yeah.
It feels good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, kind of going backwards a little bit. You gonna ask you some questions about your career, your high schooling, and your schooling along the way. So you have a high school diploma, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. General education, traditional high school.
Yep, traditional high school, MPS. I went to Milwaukee School of Languages.
Okay.
So I was in the Spanish program, and like all of my classes that were outside of like English and math and just science were in Spanish. So all of my history, civics, all of that stuff. And then from there, I did go to UWM for a little while, but
Mm-hmm.
I learned right away that four-year college just wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get in the hang of it because I felt like it wasn't really offering me what I needed to be able to feel like I had a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I took some time off of school, a lot of time. And then I finally went back to MATC after looking at their program list, and just going through and seeing what I could do in the shortest amount of time because I don't, I didn't feel confident in taking on a program that was going to be really drawn out because I had no success the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a learning lesson, but it didn't help me feel like I was getting closer to anything that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at their programs, I saw that nail technology, become a manicurist, that was one semester.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's 16 weeks. I can do that. I can commit to 16 weeks of going to school, being on time, and making sure that that was my only focus instead of trying to do all of these other classes that, that are general requirements, but I didn't feel satisfied in completing them. So that really worked because I'm a focused kind of learner.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me to go through that experience at UWM to figure that out, but I actually just ended up kind of where I always knew I would be.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to be more artistic and just being able to be with like-minded people in that program. It was exactly what I needed,
Mm-hmm.
and that just set the pace for where I am today.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask? There had to be something that drew you to that, right? Like the actual nail. I mean, yes, it was short, but like, what about that really spoke to you?
Honestly, I wanted to do something creative, but I didn't want to get into like digital arts or anything. I wanted to be really hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
And one of well, in the description, it did talk about doing nail art.
Mm.
And I love art. I've always loved drawing, painting, doing charcoals, but I kind of gave that up once I became a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how could I kind of start to get back to that without full on going into an art program because I wanted to be more expressive and I didn't want to have to do certain assignments that, okay, I want you to do this drawing or this painting or with this medium. I wanted to kind of have some freedom with it. And that was what kind of reeled me in, along with the time frame.
Right.
Knowing that I would have to figure out a situation for my kids with childcare and just being able to have a consistent schedule, along with being able to be expressive creatively, really was it. I was like, okay, that checks like so many boxes for me. And I knew that if I didn't like it, it was only 16 weeks. and I tried it, and that I would move on to the next thing. And so my next option was going to be the aesthetics program, because I did want to get more involved with like working with women and helping them with skin issues and body waxing, and that was always interesting to me. But I knew it didn't satisfy that creative side
Yeah.
of me that I really know is a part of me being happy. So that was my backup plan, and it ended up being something that I did 2 years later. I went back to MATC, and I really looked into the program before I enrolled because I knew it was going to be a little bit longer, which it was, but it was also accelerated at that time, which I think it's a little bit different now.
What's longer? Like how long is that?
It was so it was technically 3 semesters.
Okay.
So we did, like the regular school year, 2 semesters, and then we did summer classes.
Okay.
So they were able to accelerate it in a way where we could finish the associates quicker. And I still was able to graduate like normal and everything, but I was a little bit afraid of that commitment. Time is something that I've always been hard to commit to for me. But I, decided, hey, I did the nail program, and at that point I had already been doing nails. I had built a pretty good client base, so I was like, why not? This is one thing that I can add to all of the things that I already do.
Right.
And I just did it, and that was a great program too. I would so recommend it to anyone that is just kind of in that limbo area where they don't know, because with aesthetics you can do so much. I mean, you could do facials, waxing. There's advanced treatments. You could go work for a plastic surgeon, and there are a lot of career opportunities with that. So I was like, well, if I'm, by that time, if I'm not really interested in doing nails anymore, I have something else that can lead me to a lot of different career paths. But it ended up leading to me having my own business, which I was not expecting. I didn't plan for that, and I learned later on that not planning is not a good thing. But all along that way, I learned so much. So I think, it was meant to be for me, honestly.
I want to talk more about that in a second, but I do have a question about you said associates program. So I guess I didn't realize the aesthetics program is an associate degree?
Yes, so now it is an associate degree. It's actually now called the Master Aesthetician program.
Okay.
So I could go back and do the classes that they added onto the program and become a Master Aesthetician. But right now, I don't have the time for that, but that's definitely something I want to do in the future. But I did graduate from the School of Business with that, with that program. It was actually unexpected because I didn't understand that part of it. I was like, how could it be? But we took so many classes all at once that satisfied multiple of their of the requirements to be able to qualify as that associate.
Okay, and then the nail tech, that's a
certification.
Okay.
So after each one, I had to do the state board exam. So there was a practical and a written, and with that, you just you have to study a lot, but you just have to sign up for your test, pay for it, and then they get your hours. So your theory hours and then your practical hours from your instructor, from your program, whoever's your advisor basically sends that over to the state, and then that allows you to be able to take the exams. And then once you get the exams out of the way, they mail you your certificate, and then you're certified. So it's actually really nice how MATC walks you through it, because everything is very planned out. They map it out for you, and they're very explicit on how the process goes.
Okay.
And it's really it was perfect for me.
Okay. So you did those programs, you finished them, and then you decided that you wanted to kind of combine both your talents and your education. So tell us about that journey.
So I did at one point consider, not doing nails anymore, but I thought let me see how many places there are in Milwaukee that offer both of these types of services. I mean, they're not really related and you don't very
Mhm.
much see them in the same space.
Right.
But I had so many clients that would come to me for their nails and then talk about their skin problems and ask me
Mhm.
questions. And they would say, I know you went to school for this.
Mhm.
Can you please help me? And this was really when I was trying to kind of figure out a business structure where
Mhm.
I could have two spaces, but that just didn't seem to be something that was going to be easily done without having a partner or someone to work with. So I just kind of was asking my clients how would they feel about, me having both in one space, and they were like, that's amazing, that's a great idea. I would be able to come to one place one day, set aside this amount X amount of time and be able to get my facial, my wax,
Mhm.
my eyebrows done and get my nails done all at the same time.
Mhm.
There's nothing better.
No.
And I feel like in today's world, that's something that a lot of people need because our time is valuable.
Mhm.
And with that being said, I asked them and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it and see
Mhm.
what happens. And I didn't really like the basic structure of like the salons that I was interviewing and that I had worked at.
Mhm.
There wasn't a space for me to incorporate that aesthetic
Okay.
side. So I felt pressured to create that space.
Okay.
And then from there, I started looking for spaces and I opened up in Brookfield at the Phoenix Salon Suites. I rented my space there, was there for about a year, and then COVID. In that time,
Mhm.
COVID came and I was closed for a little while, so that was a little discouraging.
Mhm.
But I knew that I was kind of onto something when I opened back up and I got the response from my clients that I did. I was completely booked, busy beyond any belief of my own. I could not swallow that pill. I didn't know how to manage my time, but it was
Mhm.
all a learning lesson in the end. So it was a great idea, clearly,
Mhm.
and it's working.
Mhm.
And I'm still trying to like learn the kinks, identify them, and then kind of iron those things out as I go,
Mhm.
which comes back to planning. I
Yep.
should have planned better, but as I'm going through it, things are working out, and I am
Mhm.
coming across hurdles, but I find that I'm very easily getting over them.
Mhm.
And so I feel very confident in the way that I've incorporated both sides of it,
Mhm.
especially because of, like I said, the response that I'm getting from my clients. They love
Right.
the intimate space, they love being able to be comfortable
Mhm.
and not having the pressures of like a large salon or other people kind of interfering with their alone time.
Mhm.
Some people want to come in and they don't want to talk. They just want to be able to have that time to relax. And
Mhm.
I offer that, people want to come and they do want to talk. I offer that too.
Mhm.
So it's a very client controlled space where
Mhm.
they create the time that they want.
Yeah.
And being able to do that in one space is amazing.
Mhm.
It feels really good and
Yeah.
rewarding.
I bet. We had a barber in here. Was it last week, the week before? Who really talked about like you also taking that role of a therapist. I think when you're in a field such as this,
Yeah.
like people come for relaxation and that one-on-one time that you feel like to be successful in your business, you also have to be a good listener and someone to be able to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. So my um, nail instructor gave me some really good advice about that.
Mhm.
She said you're gonna want to be able to remember everybody's, you know, problems and be there for them and be that shoulder. But she's like, but they'll give you social cues on what's really important and things that you should really, give them that give them a genuine response. And there are sometimes she's like sometimes they just want to talk.
Mhm.
And she's like that stuff, you don't have to put all that pressure on yourself either.
Mhm.
And I kind of keep that with me because there are so many times where I feel drained from
Mhm.
just listening, but being able to kind of decompress and realize these people aren't really wanting me to be their therapist. I'm kind of taking on that role myself because of the space that I've
Mm-hmm.
created, but I do want them to know that I care. So it's a very, very hard place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really underpaid therapists.
Right.
But
Right.
at the end of the day, you learn how to navigate that. And I feel like I've gotten pretty good at it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't, but then something that is really important to them, I will remember, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes them feel so good.
Yeah.
And I have to just kind of remind myself not to be so hard on myself for not remembering everything,
Yeah.
and just being able to be there for them in
Mm-hmm.
the capacity that I can,
Mm-hmm.
and then setting boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
which is something else that I've learned along the way to protect myself and my, my stress load.
Yeah.
It directly affects that, and you just kind of learn to navigate it, but it is actually it's actually a lot when you
Mm-hmm.
sit back and think about it, but it comes natural as time
Yeah.
goes by.
Now you talked about setting boundaries, like, and I was going to ask you about any barriers that you face in your career. Would you say that's one of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of the clients that I've had since my very beginning stages of becoming a nail artist, it was very hard to set some boundaries with them, especially when it came to like booking and calling, texting, um, and just being, thinking that I'm always available
Mm-hmm.
and sort of being on demand. It was very difficult for me to say, hey, it's not okay for you to text me during these times, or, okay, from now on, can you please contact me through my business line, and things like that. That was
Mm-hmm.
one of my biggest struggles because from being at the nail salon that I started at, I had to be in control of my booking in that way.
Okay.
I wasn't familiar with how many apps and resources that are out there that can kind of manage that for you. And then when I transitioned into my own space, um, I did update that booking aspect of my business, and from there, people didn't want to book their own appointments.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to explain to them, and I have lost clients because of me having to set some boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
which at first I was kind of down about, but as time goes by, I realized that if someone's not willing to respect the boundaries that I'm putting in place so that I can be my best to service them,
Mm-hmm.
then we're just not a good match, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are always more people looking for new nail techs, new estheticians,
Mm-hmm.
or just starting to get into that part of their life where they want to do those things for themselves, or they're able to do
Right.
those things for themselves, and they are willing to respect the boundaries that I have in place. And moving at the pace that I've been, I've had to really be firm about it,
Yeah.
just to maintain some type of respect between me and the clients also, because there are some people that will test those boundaries, and they will say, oh, this time, can you? And sometimes I will be, yes, I can do that for you, I can adjust that appointment for you, but next time, this is something that you can do if you log back in, or if you really need to, you can cancel the existing appointment and then reschedule with your new services.
Mm-hmm.
For an example.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people that were completely open to that, and they were really responsive, and there were
Mm-hmm.
others that just weren't a good match for me, and they weren't
Mm-hmm.
willing to understand those things.
Right.
So, it's hard when you're just by yourself. You think that that's a really loyal client. How am I going to replace them? Well, they get replaced very easily,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, really tough for me, but I kept being firm about it, and now it's a lot easier to have
Mm-hmm.
those conversations. And I've navigated that so many times that
Mm-hmm.
now I understand how I have to approach it, so that they understand that it's just simply a boundary that will keep our relationship safe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
In this field, you talk about so many different things as far as like being able to listen to people, being able to set boundaries, time management. What do you think are like some key characteristics to any of the roles that you play, whether it's just being esthetician or a nail tech or a business owner, what are some key characteristics you think you have to have?
I truly believe the first thing that you have to do is in on this side of it is be open. Like, I don't know if many people would characterize that as a characteristic,
Mm-hmm.
but being open, because people don't want to come into that space and feel as if they're being judged, or like they can't be open and honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard to explain, because it's more, I feel like it's more than a characteristic. I feel
Yeah.
like it's, you have to really embody that openness so that
Mm-hmm.
people can trust you. People have had bad experiences with, you know, their skin or even their nails at other nail salons, so it kind of, they kind of become closed off and they're afraid. But sometimes you just have to be the first, be that first person in that space for them,
Mm-hmm.
to be open
Mm-hmm.
and allow them to come in and say, hey, this is what I had, what happened to me before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you able to respect how I feel about it and help me feel more comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that could also be characterized as like nurturing
Mm-hmm.
in a way, because a lot of people don't have that, and they want that of their esthetician or of their nail tech, to so that they can trust them,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's where their loyalty comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, okay, this person, I trust them, I know they're gonna take care of me, and I know that they're gonna be honest with me, and then it leads to a way better experience for them and
Yeah.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
Also, knowing that that person could have had a bad experience, you have to be really optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to, it's almost like you kind of have to sell yourself in the beginning, just so that they can allow you to show them what you can do. Because a lot of people are hesitant, especially now when you have people that are practicing without licenses, or there are people that have, you know, canceled appointments last minute and taken their deposit,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel vulnerable in that space.
Yeah.
You have to kind of give them everything you can to help them feel confident that you're going to do right by them, and
Mm-hmm.
allow them to feel good about themselves in the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard space to be into, because there are a lot of people that have come from bad experiences. So being able to kind of just be flexible
Mm-hmm.
and understanding.
Mm-hmm. Do you, the one who's doing the work, do you feel like we all, you know, as women or even men who go and get treatments done, do you feel, well, I know that like we feel sometimes as though this is a treat, right? Oh, we're gonna go treat ourselves, which is, I think, is true to some aspect. Do you also feel like what you do is a necessity also?
I do. I can see the change in a person within an hour.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have gone through the pandemic and become extremely depressed, low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Their confidence is very much lacking, but we don't we don't almost pay attention to our basic needs that can help us to feel better, and that translate into our entire life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something as simple as a nail color can bring someone to their confident self,
Mm-hmm.
and help them get through their week. And seeing the changes in people through the pandemic, which is it's like kind of emotional for me, because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some dramatic changes in people that were thriving before the pandemic, and they were in such a great place.
Mm-hmm.
To see them kind of fall a little bit,
Yeah.
and then I help bring them back to life. It's
Mhm.
actually really something that I'm very passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
and it brings me a lot of satisfaction and like just positive feelings within myself, because I struggled with that myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that that's something that I can confidently do for another person.
Mm-hmm.
Someone seeing that just an hour worth of a facial can make them feel bright
Yeah.
and make them feel better. Just their feel, like their mental state, it changes and in a positive way. And a lot of people think it's just treating myself, but I think it's definitely necessary because those are the little things that can help someone crawl out of those depressive feelings for just a little while until the results go away, but then you go back in and you can do it all over again.
Yeah.
And that just the pandemic alone has taught me such a valuable lesson in life that we may think of it as we're spending our last to look good. No, we're spending our last to feel good, and that's more important than looks.
Yeah.
You know, people are really caught up on that, especially with social media. But more importantly, how do you really feel at the end of the day?
Right.
I want to go home and say, oh my gosh, I really love this nail color. I want to share it with everybody. That's something that's going to get them a positive response from other people. And people are going to compliment them and say, you look bright today, you're glowing. That actually helps them on a deeper mental level than the physical part of it. So it's very powerful, and it really does make what I do all that much worthwhile.
I can see that you believe in what you do.
I do.
You're
I almost
passionate about it.
I know. I'm like, because the people that I see those changes in, they are doing better. But the pandemic has done so much to people's confidence and their ability to connect with others. It's kind of devastating to see how people have been toned down and they're not the same. And they may not realize it, but I do when I see them, especially those that have been coming to me for years now. I see the changes, and it does hurt me, but then it also helps me to feel better when I know that I've done a service for them.
Right. Yeah.
More than polish their nails, more than a few extractions. I've actually helped them on a deeper level. And that's what it, like I said, it makes it worth it. It really does.
I just realized you didn't tell us the name of your business. What's the name of your business?
Oh, it's Reina Nails and Aesthetics.
Okay.
I'm on 1812 North Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. I chose that area to be intentional because I do want to be in an area where I feel it's really accessible to people of color. That was really something that was important to me. Coming from a mixed race family, my mom is Mexican and my dad is black. You grow up in this weird space where you don't really fit in with one or the other, and sometimes you do, but I want to be able to help other people like me, the people that I identify with. I do identify as a black woman, and I do identify as a Latina woman, and I want to be able to be accessible to them because there aren't many people that can do what I do and know what I'm doing. You know, I have a lot of experience with a lot of my black clients that have gone to get a facial, and their very first facial was a chemical peel. I would never do that. I would never do that to any person, but much more a person of color, because of the things that could go wrong, and not knowing how delicate the skin actually is, and knowing from experience how hyperpigmentation is real, and it doesn't just go away, and it's a very deep-rooted problem. Those are some of the things that you can't get from someone that doesn't have those experiences personally. And I have a lot of those experiences personally. I had a serious bout of acne, and it led to an extreme amount of hyperpigmentation. And I've also dealt with keloid scarring because I'm black, and we're more prone to those things. But you can't go to certain salons and they understand how serious that is.
Because that's not something you get taught in school, is that?
You go over it, but I feel that if you have a personal experience with it, you know how devastating
Right.
it can be.
Mhm.
And that's what sets me apart from those places.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want to work with women of other races, because I definitely do, but I'm more passionate about the health care of their skin,
Mhm.
the health of their skin when it comes to skincare routines and things like that, because we're living in a world that was not made for those types of people.
Mhm.
And when you see the products that are out there and how some of the ingredients are going to create more hyperpigmentation,
Mhm.
and then they're promoting people of color to use those things, you
Mhm.
just see how the whole beauty industry is starting to take a turn towards being more inclusive,
Mhm.
but for so many years was deep rooted in colorism.
Mhm.
And that's why I chose my location. That's why I waited until I found a space where I knew I would feel comfortable sitting outside. My
Mhm.
clients wouldn't become harassed waiting for me to open the door, or just being outside
Mhm.
when that was an issue at my previous location.
Mhm.
So there is a lot that I've learned when it comes to like being intentional about where you are and who you want to service, and then bringing that out in, you know, how I market myself and my social media and things like that. But there's just so many people that need what I can do, and it's not accessible to them. So I want it to be accessible, and that's why I chose my name, because I wanted it to show my Latina side, and then I chose my location to show that I'm here for you too.
Mhm.
So it took a lot of thought, and that
Mhm.
part I did plan out.
I was gonna
But
say you didn't plan, but it sounds very much
I didn't,
intentional.
you know, the business part was the not planned so much. I kind of knew what I was doing because of school and like the business part of our classes, but they it's almost like they gave you a lot of the tools, but there aren't resources.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in the future that'll be something that I want to do, become a resource for women like me. And I don't want to just exclusively work with women, but I'm just more passionate about women because the lack of equality in the world.
Yeah.
And I just feel that that's one thing that I definitely want to do, is become a resource for people that are trying to figure out where they fit in this industry, or in starting their own business from nothing, trying to navigate the business side, the things that I've learned along the way that I didn't really know what I was doing. And I don't know how I would do it, but I would go about that, but a lot of planning, I suppose.
But you know, sometimes you learn best by just kind of going through it and realizing what it is that you did well, what you need to do better the next time, and it sounds like you've really been able to create a great business and also incorporate a lot of your personal beliefs and the way you know your lifestyle, which is great. It's a great combination.
Yeah, and that's also why I have the setup that I have, where it's just me. I feel like until I can really hone in on what I really want to do, I don't know if that I can bring other people into that. Especially when I'm creating goals and I have a direction, but my execution is not where I want it to be, where I can feel that I can bring people onto a team and we have a mission and we go for it. I want to get there one day, and I'm pretty sure I will. But as of now, I really like being able to be available for my clients and give them, you know, that trust, give them that comfortability, and be able to service them where I know I'm making a difference, because that's the part that really keeps me going.
Any last words of advice to someone who's looking to get into any of your fields, whether it's being a business owner, a nail tech, a esthetician?
Yes, I do. I would really just say, don't be afraid, because I allowed my fear to hold me back for a very long time, and I still do. And it's something that I am actively working on. But we cannot expect to get anywhere if we continue to let our fears or the what ifs or the negatives hold us back, because what I've learned is that mistakes are made daily and there's always a way to fix it. And if there's not, you just scrap it and you start over. And I've done that many times. So for every, business that succeeds, think of how many times that person failed. There are just a countless number of people that have failed miserably. But how can you succeed if you just don't know how to fail? Or you can't swallow the fact that along the way you will fail. But that is all the learning lesson behind it all. And that's actually how you build your success. If you're not going to challenge yourself or try to work towards the things that actually make you passionate, you're gonna burn out, you're gonna lose your drive, and it's not going to work out for you. But then you have to start over. And if we continue to start over, we'll find that you're still making progress. You may not be moving at the same pace as another business owner, a friend, or someone that you see from a distance on social media. But that doesn't mean that you're not being successful. That doesn't mean you're not, achieving anything. It's just you're doing it at your own pace. I've gotten to this point in my life where I felt like I wasn't where I should be by my age. And I let that hold me back a lot. But then realizing there are so many people doing so many different things. How can I compare myself to what other people are doing when they're not doing anything that I would care to do? And then not being able to find a space where I felt like I could foster those things without creating it myself. It's like as I realized one thing about myself, I realized that pushed me to do the next thing, and I didn't even think twice about it because I didn't let my fear get in the way. And that's the key, not letting your fear get in the way, because then you won't ever accomplish anything. And who hasn't failed in their life?
Everybody does.
It's all about making sure that you learn from the failure. And okay, I have to execute it differently, or I have to plan better, or I have to be more open to letting people help me. I didn't let people help me. I didn't crowdfund. Me and my husband saved the money and we did it ourselves when I could have crowdfunded. I could have put myself out there, and people that believe in what I believe in would also support that. I'm learning that now too. So just being open-minded to how you're going to get to where you want to be, and just making sure that along the way you recognize your failure and celebrate your failure, because it's going to lead to the success.
Great words of wisdom, Rosario. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And again, Rosario Bell from Reina Rose Nail and Aesthetics, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it right. All right, well, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.